Welcome back to the channel and another tutorial video. This is a Korg Opsix video. This is the second sound design video I've done for the Opsix. So the previous one I looked at FM synthesis in its most traditional DX7 style way, and the way that you can create sounds on there, including classic sounds and some new sounds. What I'm going to do in this video is focus on the analog synthesis side of the Opsix, because it does have a virtual analog technology built into it, and I'm going to show how we can use the operators and the carriers and the modulators to recreate analog synths. And so that's recreating like MS-20 style sounds, maybe a Poly 6 type sound. I'll show you how you really can recreate the architecture of any synth, not exactly the same, but how you can create really interesting analog synth style sounds in here. And that's because, as well as the FM stuff on here, we've got a filter. We've got a filter that has multiple modes in it with high pass, low pass, and you'll notice here we've got MS-20 filters, Poly 6, 12 dB octave and 24 dB octave ones with high pass and low pass and band pass filters as well as modulation. So you've got that, plus each of our operators in the FM sense can actually be a filter. So it means that you can actually have multiple filters. You can have 6 filters if you want. You've got 6 operators, and you can combine them into different modules. So you can actually create like a modular type synthesis all within the synth, and then a final filter, master filter as well. So you've got loads of different options to do. So the algorithm is how we decide. So if you remember FM synthesis algorithm, the carrier is what you hear, the modulator changes the carrier, and modulator kind of defines the tone. That's in traditional FM synthesis. In analog subtractive synthesis, I keep saying analog, I should say subtractive synthesis, well, that's what I mean. In subtractive synthesis, you start off with a harmonically rich waveform and you remove the harmonics to get the sound you want. With FM, you're kind of doing the opposite. You're combining sine waves in traditional FM to make rich, complex waves. We're going to look at this subtractive synthesis. Now, because we can stack these in different ways, and we can actually do custom ones as well, there's loads of different options we've got. But we're going to go for the most basic one, which, if I just go to initial patch and go to my algorithm, and you'll know algorithm that we want to use for this one, the most basic one is there, number 32. They're all operators, which means you can hear all of these and there's not interacting with each other. So that is good for the subtractive synthesis with just a simple single filter. We'll go into more complex ones in a sec. So I'll start by bringing everything down apart from operator 1, so you can hear the sine wave. Now, if you're thinking subtractive synthesis, if I was working with a MS-20 or a Minimoog or whatever, sine waves aren't what you want. You want something a bit more rich. So I'm going to go with and you can see here all the different waveforms. We've got additive waves as well as the sine waves and the traditional sawtooth. So I'm going to go with a sawtooth. Now, notice we've got HD versions of the square and the sawtooth. And let's see, I don't really hear them in this playing way, but let's have a listen. So there is a traditional sawtooth. If I go back to the non-HD one, you see it's not quite as bright. This one's got a bit more to it. It takes more CPU when you're doing that, but I've never seemed to run out of any issues with CPU or polyphony with this. So I'm going to leave it on that HD one for now. So straight away you've got a traditional sawtooth that's currently going through a low pass filter. So let's just turn the operator down for now. Go to operator 2, which is a sine wave, and let's change that to the sawtooth HD as well. We can tune it. So that's like the octaves, the coarse ratio. If we go to the pitch, you can see more of it. So I'm going to leave that. In fact, I'm going to put that an octave lower. And if I bring up operator 1. So you can hear the two oscillators there. If we put a bit of detuning, I think it sounds quite good. You can go right the way up. So it gets a bit too much, so let's go like that. No effects on anything else like at the moment. If we have a look at the envelopes, you can see both envelopes have got that sharp initial attack and then drop the sustain. Actually, for what we wanted to do, I wanted it to have the... I'm going to go with both the same with the full sustain level. And of course, what we can do now is just bring in... Maybe I want to soften the attack on that and have some release on that. That's on 2. So notice we've already got independent LFOs, independent VCAs on these operators before they pass through to our filter. I'm talking analog synthesis, subtractive synthesis modeling here, because in the Opsix world, each one of these operators has its own envelope. So if you were picturing an analog synth, it's like having an envelope. You've got your oscillator going into a VCA, then going into a filter, which is normally we do kind of the other way around. But because that means we can have independent ones. So that lower one, I can bring in a little bit more slowly than the higher. So if I exaggerate it, you'll hear what I mean. So that's probably maybe about right. And I'm going to go to the other operator, operator 1, just bring that in a bit and put some sustain on it. So straight away you've got a bit of difference because those envelopes aren't tied together. So that's 2. Let's take those down for a second. Go to number 3. But same with the envelope as well on this one. Now this time we're going to do the old PWM trick. So let's go to my envelope and we're going to choose a square wave. Nice traditional square wave. And we have got a width control. But I think what would sound most interesting is if we had an LFO on that. So we can go into our virtual patch. We can say the source is LFO 3, because I know that's not used for anything. LFO 1 is generally pitch, LFO 2 is usually for the filter. So LFO 3 is destination, is operator 1 width. There we go, and we can adjust that to taste. Now, spot my deliberate mistake, it's not operator 1, is it? We're on 3. So it's going to take a little bit of adjusting now, so let's just go back. That's probably okay. Give it a bit of sustain on there. Maybe bring that down a bit. With no filter yet. Okay, so now if you want to hear all 3. Get a bit high, hot on those levels. So we've now got a 3 oscillator analog synthesizer, subtractive synthesizer, and we've still got 3 more to play with, so we could do something else. So on this one, operator 4, I'm going to do this sort of technique that you would use. So I'm going to do bits of have a sharp attack one to give our sound a bit of attack. For that, we need to choose a nice bright waveform, so we'll use a sawtooth. That's it, and maybe we go a bit higher side. Okay, we could go something like that. And we've still got 2 left actually, so maybe we could just thicken it up And let's go for a triangle because we haven't used one. Triangles, and we can still do the width on the triangle. And if you use the analyzer, you can see it as well. So there's a single triangle, and I can go to the width of that. So a bit about there. And the other thing I could do with some feedback. So feedback is the FM feedback, so it's feedback oscillator itself. Let's see what that does. So that's taking us back to a sawtooth, isn't it? So I'll leave that one there. And I'm going to have that as the lower tone in there. So we've still got one left to play with, so what should we do with operator? And we'll have this a really slow one, I think. And now this is where we could, I'm going outside of subtractive really, we could have an additive wave. Oh, a bit of noise. Let's have a bit of noise on there. So have a bit of noise. So it's just going to have a bit of C, maybe C kind of noise, sort of coming in and out. So what we're going to need is to modulate the level of that with an LFO, which we've got LFO1 for that. Oh, it's a train territory there, don't we? So what we need to do is go to the mod, and I'm going to turn that right there. So which one is LFO1 I used in there? So go to LFO1. I'm going to leave it free running. There we go. Right, so that's bring them all back in now. It's probably a little bit over the top, but it's a bit much, but that shows you what we can do. Now we can go to our filter and do some play about with it now. So we can bring the cutoff down like that, and let's use some envelope for it. There's the EG2 control, EG amount. So if we go to level, to mods, if we look at EG2, the filter, that's the current shape. Bring that cutoff down a bit more, and more envelope. Play the resonance. Now we could have a little bit of movement by putting a slight bit of LFO on the filter. And we could also put some key tracking on as well. We could go the other way to open it up as we go up the keyboard. Okay, so now we can add some effects, and I know from using this it sounds quite good if we're getting on a bit of chorus or even ensemble. And we've got different options on here. I like, there's a, of course we want to go analog, we could put phase on there. But there's an exciter which I quite like. auto pan sounds good. There's the exciter, enhancer, exciter. Well, let's go with the auto pan. And then finally we'll add some reverb on it. And if we wanted to go really old school, we could put on a spring reverb. So there we've created a full 6 oscillator analog or subtractive synth style program. Let me save that one. I'll just save that. Okay, now what I want to do is take it to the next level and show a bit more complexity. So we'll go on to another program here. Okay, so I mentioned about the operators can become filters in their own right. So let's have a look at another way of doing it. So for this one, I'm going to choose an algorithm that's got a couple of stacks. So maybe this one here. So we've got three sets of pairs of operators, so carriers and modulators. So let's get rid of all these others. So you can hear the sine wave there. So this is the carrier one we can hear. So what I'm going to do is change that from being FM synthesis into a filter. Now it does have the option of also having its own oscillator, which is what we can hear now. But for this example, I'm going to turn that down so we can't hear anything because it's just filter. And of course I'm not on the right operator. So let's go to the right operator, change it to filter, turn that down. But we shouldn't hear anything at all now. So think of this as a filter on an analog synth. So if I go to operator 2 and put this volume up, we'll hear that sine wave of operator 2. So let's change operator 2's sine wave to a sawtooth. And we can hear that. So that sawtooth is going through the filter. We might want to just check the envelopes because the defaults are kind of got that effect. So I'm just going to add some release on that as well. Do the same on there. Right, so let's go back to our filter. Now we can open the filter up. And we've got resonance. And we can change the kind of filter. We've got high pass, low pass, band passes, MGs, which are your Moogs, MS-20s. So let's go with the MS-20 one. So let's go with the opposite we did before. We'll go for a sharp sort of that kind of sound. Now we can't set the amount of the EG amount because it's just on there. We've got some resonance, but what we have got is a frequency in this ratio. So if we go to pitch, you can actually change it from pitch to fixed, and here you can do the frequency of the filter. Because when it's on ratio, it's doing the key tracking. It's probably not a good way of showing you. Let me just open this envelope up for now. There you go, you can hear me changing that. And if let's go for a different let's go for a band pass, say. So we've got some like vocal type of on there using that band pass. But let's go with a low pass for now. There you can hear that. So now let's apply some level to it. Right. So the actual audio we're hearing is just operator 2. Now think what I'm going to do is go for that kind of effect. Now, don't forget, if you want to hear a long release time, you're going to have to go back to your oscillator. That's it. But it's very static at the moment, so we can adjust that the level, our filter levels. We can probably play with them a little bit. But what we have got is all the modulation options. So that cutoff frequency, for example, we can modulate that. We can use envelopes. I mentioned about envelopes before. You have got an envelope intensity. So have some velocity, a bit of LFO on it, and some velocity. Yeah, that's quite good. I'm actually going to change it to this shape. So that's one pair of an oscillator going through a filter. So then we could do the same thing with another pair. So on 3, we change its mode to filter. I'll talk about these other things like filter FM and wavefold in a separate video. Filter FM is quite close, so I might mention just briefly at the end of this video on that one. But let's leave the mix on this time to hear the difference. So I'll turn it off for now. We'll go to operator 4 and set that as a sawtooth, and then we'll go back to our oscillator here. Let's open up that filter a bit. So we need to go to operator 3. Let's put a bit of we'll play with the envelopes a little bit, and let's just do the cutoff a bit. Now let's put the oscillator mix in. You'll hear the sine wave underneath being affected. You can hear the pitch is actually being modified by that. Actually, you can hear I applied some envelope before. That's affecting the pitch, obviously, because in the pitch section. Let's turn that down. Oh, so I can bring that sine wave, but if I change that to a sawtooth square, you'll hear both now. So that's 50-50 now. So that's actually also like you can also treat that like a sub oscillator almost, because you can go to the pitch and lower it down. So that's that pair, and I could even just detune. Well, in this case, I'll detune 2 as well, just to bring that back up. And we've still got another pair that you could use as well. So that is. So that's like the combinations of the separate blocks. Now, if I briefly go back, this final one, let's just go with a high pass filter. So 5 into the mode, change it to a filter, turn off its own mix, change it to a high pass. So for 6, we need to use FM, and we'll use a sawtooth for that. And you can hear the high pass now. If I go back to 5, let's change this to a fixed mode, and then I can play with the values. So let's go back to 5, yeah. So that's that acting as a high pass filter now. So I'm going to use it like to make some strings. So I can use that envelope now, that pitch envelope, because that pitch is obviously controlling the filter. And maybe if we want to make it more stringified, or maybe we should go an operator 6 and just make that a square, and we can put on some modding, or use LFO 3 to change operator 6's width. So it's going through a high pass filter now, so you can hear the okay, so we've got a high pass filter there, we've got a dual oscillator there, and we've got that resonance on there. And we've got no detuning at the moment, I don't think, so I think I did a little bit before. Now, okay, so what we haven't touched is the other filter. So we've still got one master filter effective left to go with, and we could put that through a, let's go through a bandpass. Let's envelope that a bit. So our filter envelope with it. You can hear that. Just a bit of chorus. A bit of flanging. And some reverb. So now we've got a, if you can see that, we've got a 3 oscillator subtractive synth going through 3 independent filters and then 1 master filter as well. So really another interesting sound option there. Now there's one final way that I'm going to say for a second video, I think, or a separate video, is custom algorithms. You can actually make your own, and it's a bit, there's a few steps that you need to do to it, so I'm going to make a separate video on that one. But that one you can do the kind of opposite way I did initially at the beginning, where you can have one oscillator feeding multiple filters. So imagine you had an analog style synth with one oscillator, but you had 5 or 6 filters that you could feed into, all doing different things. You can imagine what kind of sound you get for that, and I'll show you that on a follow-up video. But you can hear, I haven't done really much with envelopes or any LFO. I've only done a little bit of patch, the virtual patching, and you've got some interesting sounds on there. What I haven't done is any combinations. So I'm going to finally just show you one other thing. If I go back to my algorithms, I'm actually going to change algorithms to this one. So here we've still got our pair as normal, but this time operator 3 is stacked on top of operator 2 and 3. So this at the moment is going to pass through, but what we could do is change look at what the modes. Operator 1 is the filter, operator 2 is FM. I'm going to change operator 3 wasn't filter. I'm going to change that to FM. And suddenly we've got much more complex waveforms being fed into the filter rather than, so this was a sawtooth. In fact, let me just go back, make it a sine wave. and we're going to make number 2 a sine wave, just to sort of give you more FM type. So now we've got, I'm just going to open this filter up a bit. So now we've got FM going into an analog style filter and then into a master filter, which I've just opened up. So you can get those glassy top textures of FM, but going through a filter. So what I've got now is FM synthesis feeding into a filter. And that filter I can go back and play around with. I could put that through a high pass, or even through a band pass might sound quite good. So I've got FM going into the filter, and then I could have another filter on top of that. And because we've got 2 pair, we could stack those. So you got back to your FM technique. So if you've followed the FM or you're familiar with FM, you know how that works. You can then create FM type waveforms. If I go to operator 3 and just look at the envelope. So you create some interesting combinations of hybrid sounds of FM. So you could do FM into a filter, or you could just do all FM and you could do all filter. You could use any of those algorithms to get that to suit what you want. So just to finish off then, I'm just going to show you a couple of presets where I've done some bits and pieces like this. So here's some Poly 61 type strings, because the Poly 61 filter is modelled in here. And I've just copied that as well. I also did the MS-20, like lead sound. And for that one, what I've done, I've used just not all of the oscillators, or operators, get my terminology correct. Which is FM, you talk operators, analog, talking oscillators. But here what I've done is I've modelled an MS-20 style architecture where I've got 2 oscillators in MS-20 terms feeding in series through a high pass filter and then a low pass filter. So I kind of, so you've got your 2 oscillators go to the high pass and then a low pass. So I've kind of modelled that synth. So if you think of another synth like that, that's what I did with the Poly 6. The Poly 6 was a bit easier because that's just got the single oscillator and going through the filter. So that's how I've done that one. The Poly 61 is a dual oscillator, so I've just used those stacks. So here's a nice pad sound, and I've modelled the architecture of the multi-poly, the way that has its multiple oscillators and dual filters. So I've done the same thing again. So you can really have a lot of fun with it, and it's got a lot of capabilities. So you've got the FM side, you've got this analog side with the filters, and of course you can mix and match them as much as you want. So the next video I'm going to show you about custom algorithms, and also we'll be talking about filter FM as well. In fact, we'll go through separate videos, all of these different things on here. But what we've been using is FM and filters. The next thing to do is put them together and use filter FM. So thanks for watching the video. I hope that was useful. Please like and subscribe if you do like. Leave a comment. Let me know if you have any questions about the Opsix or any of the other synths featured on the channel. And I'll see you on the next video.